I'm cold. What am I going to do?
Oh yeah, it's chilly.
It is. Hey, everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. So why do I dress like this? Well, those of you that have been watching me a long time usually see me in little skimpy shirts with, shoulders showing because I lived in the desert and it was always warm. Well, Northern California is a wonderful place, but it's 32 degrees and I'm really cold. Hence, this is what I'm wearing. Well, today's guest is named Rachael Brown, and she wrote a fabulous book, which I really encourage you to read, or in my case, listen to like I did. It's called For Fork's Sake, and she's going to tell us her story of how to eat whole food, plant-based, no oil without losing your mind or your friends. Please welcome her to the show. Hey, Rachael, nice to meet you.
Hi, Chef AJ. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Well, great. I love stories, and I love that your story was an interesting story because I always like people to tell like when they became vegan or plant-based and how, but it was really, we can thank your nephew, can't we?
We can. And yeah, I have to preface it by saying, because I forget to add this part sometimes, he is very healthy. He's a healthy 17-year-old these days. But almost 13 years ago now, he was 5 years old and his mom was in nursing school. And he, over Christmas break, developed a mole on his back and it was cancerous. And one of the professors in nursing school that she was attending asked her if she'd looked at the role of diet and nutrition in cancer. And at that time, they had like a small hobby farm, grew their own animals to eat, had a huge garden, but she taught me how to pull our own mozzarella cheese. I mean, they were doing the whole kind of homestead thing and eating a lot of animal products. So this was new information, and she started reading books, and overnight they changed the way they were eating. And she told me, you have to read this book called The China Study. And I read it, and initially, I have to tell you, I was so angry because I was like, how come we don't know this information? Why has nobody told me this? I'd had high cholesterol since my early 20s, and I'd said I didn't want to go on medication. So, I'd been told over the years, cut back on the eggs and lower the amount of cheese you're eating and exercise a little more. And, I was eating healthy. I was working out a lot. I love to hike, run, rock climb, doing all kinds of things. But my cholesterol would slowly creep up and up and up. So I read the book and we went online. I found a Dr. McDougall, free online, do it yourself 10-day program. So I got my blood drawn and I couldn't get back in on day 10. So on day 17, I got my second blood draw. And when I went to see my doctor, he said, what did you do? Because your cholesterol dropped 50 points and I couldn't do that with medication. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And that was both good and bad time because we were like, oh, great, it worked. But also, oh no, how do we do this? So, 12, 13 years ago, there were some books out there, but they weren't readily available, I would say. So yeah, beginning of our family of 4, my kids were 6 and 8 at the time. And we all transitioned.
That's incredible. Did you do the McDougall program in person or online?
So it wasn't even, we didn't do the program. I just read through, they had like the free guide and here's all the recipes. So we just did that. And I read, all his articles and all of that. 2 years ago, we actually did an online version. Just, our kids were going back to college. And I thought it would be nice for them to hear this from somebody else other than mom, maybe. And just as kind of a reset. And the epilogue in the book is about my son, because even though we've been eating this way for 12 years, he lost 20 pounds in 5 weeks or something, just from cutting out nuts and, a few different foods. So, yeah, that was a good reset. But yeah, it was all the free stuff on drmcdougall.com.
That's very encouraging for people to say, well, I can't afford the McDougall program. Right. Well, it's the free program because it works just as well.
Yeah. And, they're saying now that their online program, which I would agree with, is even better, like we did, because it's not that you were going somewhere and someone was preparing food for you. In those 10 days, I was learning how to prepare all these foods myself and finding our favorites. We wrote down what we liked and what we didn't like, and just kept using a lot of those recipes. I mean, there's thousands of recipes on their website. So it was wonderful.
So how old was your nephew, who is now 17, and when he changed his diet?
Yeah, he was 5 years old at the time.
So he probably wasn't very difficult for him as a 5-year-old.
No, not really. And our kids were 6 and 8, and it wasn't difficult for them either. They had a few things they missed, but I talk about in for fork's sake, I talk about using things you like. Like we made a list of all the foods they loved. So at that age, it was like mac and cheese and pizza and burgers, and we just made foods that were similar to that, only made them whole food, plant based, and they'd go to their friend's house and they couldn't wait to have real mac and cheese out of a box. And then they'd come home and say, it didn't taste as good as I remembered. Like, I like our macaroni and cheese better. So,
I always am interested in the person that tells the person about this. So the person that told your sister to look into diet, do you remember who that was?
It was one of her professors at nursing school, which is shocking to me.
That is amazing. Where was she going to nursing school?
I can't even tell you. It was out of in Washington State. I want to say it was Everett. I think it's a community college. She was getting her LPN, is it? I believe. Yeah.
Because I would love to go down that trail and find that person and have them on the show, because we had a chef on the show once, and I said, well, where did you hear about going vegan or plant-based? And it was from her tennis coach in college. And then I got him on. See, it's people like that are doing things in their daily life that, like, because that person not only touched your sister's life and her family, and yours, and now you know what I mean? So if you can find that person, let's do it. So
I'll ask her.
Well, I'm curious, because if that was 12 years ago, the nursing professor just said, have you looked into diet? So your sister just kind of Googled it and came up with the China study. Was that how it worked?
Yeah, I don't know if she suggested books. So like at first they did Gerson therapy. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it was like lots of juicing, tons and tons of fresh fruits and vegetables, just getting as many antioxidants in your system as possible. So they did a lot on the extreme end, and then landed in the whole food, plant-based arena after that. So yeah.
How's your nephew now, and did anything ever return?
No, he is healthy, and he'll be 18 in April. So he's a healthy young man. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love this. I love that kind of story. So 12 years, tell us what led you to write the book, and maybe hold it up so people can see it. I did the audible version. Yeah,
this is it for fork's sake. There's paperback, hardcover, audiobook, ebook, all that stuff. So I've done lots of different things. My degree is in geography. And since having kids.
Geography?
Geography, like land and people.
Did you ever teach it, or?
I did not actually. After graduation, I worked for a year at a camp and conference center in Washington State. And then my husband and I thought we wanted to teach overseas. So we moved to Alaska, and we lived there for 4 years, and had 2 kids. And then I taught yoga and Pilates. I got certified in that, so that I could be around with the kids as well. And then I went back to school for massage, and right up until COVID, I was doing a neurological kind of technique that helped people get out of chronic pain. It was fascinating. I learned it from a client who came to me, had seen somebody who did this technique, and it took care of his chronic back pain. He was not a woo-woo kind of guy. So I trained with this doctor in Colorado. So I was happily doing that before COVID. So gratifying to help people who were really without hope, who thought they would be in chronic pain for the rest of their lives, get out of chronic pain.
We could do a show on that. That sounds fascinating. Do you still do it? And what is the name of the technique?
It's called pain neutralization technique. And Dr. Stephen Kaufman is the doctor in Colorado. And the first training, it was like 50 doctors from around the world. And a few of us were body workers. And it was super fascinating. I called my husband the first night and said, I just need to look at a white wall, because it is amazing what's going on. And we'd break out and work on tables. And by the end of 3 days, nobody had any pain that was still happening. I mean, it was just really unbelievable. And it's just working with your brain, getting those pain signals that are in a loop, kind of stuck in a loop, using your own brain to help turn those off. So
I want to try this, because I have TMJ, and it's if I could, that sounds amazing.
I've had success with people with TMJ. Yeah. There's certain things that are pretty easy, and it can take like one to 6 sessions, and it'll be gone. It's really fascinating. So, so that's what I was doing. And then COVID hit and I couldn't see clients here in California. And my kids were at home doing college and high school on their computers, and I was trying not to drive them crazy or myself crazy. And that's when I went back to the Colin Campbell Center for the Nutrition Studies and got my plant-based nutrition certificate. And, after we'd been eating this way for 10 years. So it wasn't a whole lot of new information, but it was really great to have it and, learn it in a different way. And so I did that. COVID was still happening. So I went back and did their food and sustainability course, their certificate course in that as well, which was, again, fascinating and wonderful. But my family was kind of tired about hearing about the evils of CAFOs around the dinner table. And, I was like, I want to share this information, but what is the best way? And so that's when I decided, talking with lots of families over the years, a lot of young families, especially, who would go, oh yeah, well, I want to try it, but I don't have time to read the China study, or that's, too much for me, or it's too expensive, or, just all these things that weren't really true. So I was like, if I could write something that fell in the middle, that was a quick and easy read, something they could grab onto, give them the why in the beginning and then the how, so they could do the 10 days on their own, so they could experience. That's what I aim to do. So I really wrote the book that I wish I would have had 12 years ago. And I hope everyone will read the China study. That to me is the Bible of plant-based eating. But if that's a tough start, then hopefully this is like an entryway book.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Let me find my questions pulling up, but I'm enjoying learning about you. I like the acronym that you keep using in the book, from SAD to happy. What tells you that?
Well, whole food, plant-based, no oil, like WFPBNO or what, it doesn't really roll off the tongue. So was trying to come up with something that would be memorable, kind of catchy, and remind people of what we're doing. We really are going from, SAD is such a great acronym. The standard American diet really is SAD. And we are getting to happy when we get rid of the SAD. So healthy and plant-powered, yay, was the acronym we use. So SAD to happy.
Wait, say it again.
Healthy and plant-powered, yay.
I love it. I love it. You said, I love it. That's very clever. Very, very clever. So a lot of people go plant-based, but they don't ever really get the no oil piece.
Yes, that has been a big conversation. My mom and I talk about this all the time, because she's like, but olive oil is so good for you, Yeah. And that can be a real game changer for a lot of people who have issues with their blood work or have a hard time, losing weight. The oils and the fats and the nuts and the seeds, all those things. Like similar to you, learning about calorie density was an absolute game changer for us. And that's the kind of stuff everybody should know. As a human, I feel like everybody should know this.
When you went plant-based 12 years ago, did you do it overnight, or did you more slowly transition yourself and your family?
Well, so we did that overnight 10-day thing, and that proved to us this is really going to work. And then with 2 kids and a husband who was mostly on board, but who would still go get a steak burrito when he would go meet with guys to ride his bike once a week. He did a group of mountain bike ride once a week, and 2 weeks in a row he couldn't get a steak burrito, and he felt better than he ever had. And so it proved to himself he didn't need it. But it was tricky, I would say, with younger kids. So we experimented with a lot of different things. So like, initially we were like very black and white, like we're doing this. And then my son went to a birthday party, and I can't remember if he ate 12 hot dogs and 6 cookies, or 6 hot dogs and 12 cookies. But, it was like the chance to have what he couldn't have at home. And so that's when we discovered, like, oh, okay, that's maybe not going to be the best way for him or for some of us in the family. So, we modified. We went, okay, so at home, we're going to eat this way. We're not going to have like your favorite. If it's not in your house, you can't eat it, right? It's not in your mouth. So we had that at home. And then we would go out, like if we're at somebody's house, or if we were at a restaurant with friends, then have whatever you want. Again, in the beginning, that was like the big splurge time. But over time, it just became we felt better. My kids, my daughter and husband have lactose intolerance. So if we went to pizza or something and they splurged on pizza, they would be in horrible pain for hours after that. It just wasn't as fun as they thought. And so, over a period of time, that just wasn't as much of a lure as it had been in the beginning. And, over the years, we had wonderful friends who, kind of wondered what this crazy thing we were doing in the beginning was, but then over time saw we were healthy and thriving and had energy and felt good. And we'd make meals to share or, goodies to drop off or whatever. Friends were really willing to participate as well. So it wasn't like when we went somewhere, we had to, bring our own food. People were really willing to give it a go with us. So that made it easier as well.
Were you a good cook before? And was it just a matter of learning how to cook without oil?
I would say I am the cook in the family. I just throw things together more than use recipes. My husband's the baker. I'm not a great baker because I don't like to measure. Similar to like what you posted last night, like I throw things together and it's wonderful and horrible because the kids will be like, oh, will you make this again? And I'm like,
you can't.
Probably never.
That is the one drawback to cooking.
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's so wonderful to be able to cook with things that are fresh, or things you have laying around that you need to use. It's been, I would say I learned more how to do that through this process. But beforehand, I probably cooked with a lot more recipes, I would say. But now it's even easier, I would say, to cook. Not to mention, like you said, with the oil, when people are like, I can't cook without oil. Like, just wait. You think it's impossible, but it is so easy. And your kitchen is so clean and your body will be so clean as well,
Exactly. Susanna, who's watching live, said, yes, but what about healthy fats like olive oil? Someone said to her yesterday. Oh my God.
Yes, I know. And, it can be tricky. I have a variety of answers. But what I'm saying now is like, why you don't pour oil down your drains, right? Like that, because it clogs
it. Yeah.
Same thing in our bodies, right? And people don't really seem to connect that it's 100% fat. That is like, why would you just eat 100% fat? You can get all the fat, all the good fat you need from a range of whole foods. So just not necessary. And I would say, I was speaking with somebody a few months ago, and her grandmother lived to be either 106 or 108. And she has been whole food, plant-based, vegan for like over 30 years. And she, the granddaughter, she was asking her grandmother, like, what, how much oil did you use cooking? And her grandmother thought for a minute. She said, we didn't have oil in the stores until not too long ago. And that was like an aha moment. Like, they maybe had lard from the animals they were eating, but it wasn't like oil was a readily available thing sitting on the shelves, So it's a newer thing for people to eat 100% fat and have access to it all the time and have it be in all the packaged
foods. Because it's not in nature. And what people don't, our brain needs fat. Really? Well, how did we make it this far in human history when there was no oil throughout most of it? And even things like nuts, seeds, and avocado were seasonal. People just, they still just want to cram them down your mouth. People are saying they love the name of your book. Who thought of it? Why did you name it that?
Thank you. It seems to be a love or hate kind of thing. I appreciate it. This is probably title number 18. We were trying to come up with something catchy and kind of cheeky and fun, but stay on point. It's funny because Amazon will not run ads because of the title of my book. My book is on Amazon, but when we went to run ads, they said they wouldn't because the title was offensive. So that was kind of a bummer.
Oh my goodness. John Joseph wrote a book called Meat is for Pussies.
Right? I know. I don't understand. Yeah.
It's adorable. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What were some of the titles that didn't make it?
Oh gosh, I don't even remember. I feel like, we had like, combinations of subtitles and titles and, oh man, I'd have to pull out my notes somewhere. There were so many. I kept sending rounds to friends, like, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? I did have one person who, with this title, said, I would not buy it if that's the title. And I was like, if it bothers you that much, then I guess it's not the book for you. But yeah, kind of wild.
Well, people, Forks Over Knives promoted it, so they thought it was good.
Right. Yeah, I've had some articles in there. Yeah.
Oh my God. So Jennifer, I don't know if you can do this on this show, maybe you'll come another time, but Jennifer's saying, can you talk a little bit about the pain thing? People are finding that fascinating, the techniques that you use.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I would say it was helpful. There are many doctors around the country who practice this. In fact, the number 3 pain management specialist in the world lives in Alabama. Dr. David Walsh, I believe is his name. And he's been using this for, I think, over 10 years. He primarily works with people who opioids wouldn't work anymore because they've had failed back surgeries, and they've been on drugs for so long, or people home from war with phantom limb pain. And so he, in the early days, started using this and having such success with them. But it was interesting in the training, massage therapists and people who knew muscles and ligaments had an easier time helping clients or patients with this than doctors, because doctors had to learn that at one point, but maybe that's not what they do every day. So it was really helpful having, been out of massage school 8 years or whatever at the time, to be applying it. So it's really it's working a lot with trigger points. If people are familiar with pain, they probably know trigger points. So finding that really tight spot somewhere, and it could be in the muscle, it could be in the fascia, it could be in the ligament even. And then using one of I think there's now 10 techniques, but there were 6 or 8 when I did it. Using one of those techniques to turn it off is what he says. So it's everything from, the doctor's chiropractor. He's working with meridian lines, acupuncture points, but that's probably 2 of the different ways you can turn it off. But just cross, if you know which way the muscle fiber lies, you can just put a bend in the fibers. And when you do a little bit of tapping, like bilateral tapping, your brain is like trying to keep track of so many things. I think of I would explain to people like water running through a garden hose. You're just putting a kink in the hose for a little bit. So with that tapping, then your brain is trying to keep track of all that. You're incrementally going up in your tapping number wise. And so your brain is focusing on all this stuff. And what it will do is it will stop sending that pain signal for just a moment. And if you can stop that, sometimes your body just gets in this habit of sending a pain signal. It's just been doing it for so long, but it realizes it doesn't really need to. So it's so fascinating. I mean, we worked with people who had broken necks from bike accidents and chronic back pain. Somebody in the military had chronic neck pain. I mean, it was really across the board. Emotional, there's a whole emotional component. So people who are dealing with depression, anxiety.
That is amazing. And even people that could take pain meds, they might want to do this instead or try this.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And he's got a whole, I haven't taken a class in it, but a whole protocol for COVID and breathing and lung stuff too. So
I think that's fascinating. So here's a question from a live viewer named Alina. Well, what about a little bit of vegan butter on your baked potato? Is it the quantity?
Yeah, so we're back to processed foods, I would say, and fats you don't need, right? So to me, it's funny, different people do different things. And I talk about knowing yourself in this book. Like your question about, did we go, switch everything black and white, or did we transition slowly? I think it helps to know yourself. So some people are really good at deciding to do something and just doing it, right? Other people want a little more information or want to start slowly, add in a new habit. So for some people, transition foods like not using regular butter and using vegan butter for a little bit might be easy. And then eventually they stop using the vegan butter, hopefully, and move to hummus or something else that would be really good. But it's hard when people get stuck there and just use the transition foods instead. So that's where the problem lies, I would say, is that it's a processed food. You don't need it. If you're trying it because you're just starting this way of eating, then give yourself a time period or one container. You're not going to buy any more after that, and find some other solutions to use something that would be a whole plant that your body will use all of it and you'll get everything you need.
Right. And the thing is, fat, it's so addictive. The more fat you eat, the more fat you crave.
Yes. And that for us, I mean, we don't typically keep nut butter around the house because my son and I mean, peanut butter and almond butter, I can just eat by the spoonful. And it's not that nuts are bad, right? They're good for you. But yeah, if I have it, for a while, then all of a sudden I want it all the more. So
that is exactly me. Like, last night we were at my sister-in-law's for dinner, and I don't eat the overt fats. I can't, I'm an addict. And it's just like the minute I have a little, I just want more. And I didn't realize there was like these little pieces of avocado in the salad, and I didn't see it, and I ate it, but it was like, yeah, oh, this is so good. So more. The minute I get hold of it, I mean, I can eat all the carbs I want, all the starch, potatoes, rice, fruits, vegetables, but man, you start putting tahini on that or guacamole.
Oh yeah.
Whoa, this is really good. So what Mediterranean diet is so popular? Because that's what people think. Well, it's olive oil. It must be good for you, the Mediterranean diet,
Yeah, I think we've been fed this well, it's, every year or less, there's some new diet, right, that comes out that American public jumps on board like, oh, okay, hopefully this will be it. And I think a lot went into promoting the Mediterranean diet, which in some ways they got right? But it's not because of the avocado or the olive oil. It's in spite of, the Mediterranean diet is touted as healthy because they had a lot more whole grains, vegetables, and fruits than we do, right? And so it just is like a little information is what we got on the Mediterranean diet, but we didn't really dig into it as a general public. So we hear it's so good for us. And yes, if you're adding more whole grains, fruits and vegetables, some seeds and nuts possibly, that's great for you, but you can cut out the oils and it'll be even better for you.
Right. Well, also the question is a little bit, how much is a little? Because, most people can't moderate things very well. I know Dr. Goldman said, what's wrong with a little cocaine, a little alcohol, all those kind of things. And it sounds like the Mediterranean diet was healthy, not because of the olive oil, but in spite of it.
Right. Well, in my book, Christopher Carnrick, I don't know if you know him. He's hilarious. He a chef. He used to teach cooking classes in Spain, and he was one of the chefs on the McDougall program we did. And he was saying, in a tablespoon of olive oil, that's 50 olives. So you think about a little bit, like if you want 50 olives, go ahead and eat 50 olives. You probably won't. You'll probably eat, I don't know, 6 to 12, and you'll be full. You'll be satiated with that because it's got everything in it. It's got fiber, it's got nutrients, it's got all these things. But it's really easy to eat way more than 1 tablespoon of olive oil, right?
And when I was little, when we have pitted olives, I put 1 on each finger, like Mickey Mouse finger. So I would eat 10 olives, but not 50. Yeah,
right.
so,
my daughter would do that.
So one of the viewers is saying, well, what about tahini? But the thing is like, you can't, there's no tahini in nature.
Yeah, true.
Like peanut butter. Tahini to sesame seed is like peanut butter to peanut.
Right. Yeah. And, I loved like what Dr. Negron said on Monday, right? When I saw her 2 weeks ago in Arizona speaking and spoke with her, and her whole, eat to live 6 days a week, and then 1 day a week, live to eat, right? So to me, you want to be able to enjoy the food you eat. And if you give yourself around 2 weeks for your taste buds to change, you will enjoy food without oil. You will enjoy it. You don't need to have it. Your taste buds will literally change. However, if you really want, some different to mix it up or whatever, then great, 1 day a week, make something, that has tahini oil in it if you want, a dressing or something. But maybe for a lot of people, that wouldn't be an everyday thing. That would be like a special occasion kind of thing. So that's back to really knowing yourself and figuring out what works for you. Some people, I think of the Esselstyns, Anne and Jane, they have a lot of things that's got a lot of almond meal and they're wonderful goodies. But for me, they're easy to overeat because they are so rich, but they're wonderful food. It's not that any of it is bad for you. It's figuring out for yourself what works, how you can eat it.
Know thyself. Well, you mentioned in your book, let me see, because I took some notes when I was listening to it. That's what I love about Audible, because I'm listening on my phone and I can type on my phone at the same time. You said oil is worse than saturated fat.
Yeah, that comes from Colin Campbell's work. And I was surprised to learn that. And it has to do with how your body breaks it down. Plant oils, especially the oxidization of things, it just leads to inflammation in your body. So I know Dr. Lyle mentioned too, T. Colin Campbell's book, Whole. That is a wonderful book. I think second to the China study, Whole is probably the next book to read, just to really get that concept of our bodies, like we were mentioning with the olive oil versus the olive. There's so much chemically that's going on with all those components in a whole olive, as opposed to olive oil that's been pressed out.
People that are new, they might even want to start with whole, because I found like the China study it's kind of hard to read if you're not a doctor. That's why doctors resonate with it, but whole might be a good place for people. I got to ask you this. I'm looking at you. Do people tell you look like a certain actress?
I have heard.
Is it Julia Roberts?
Oh no, Drew Barrymore is what I used to get.
Really?
I'll take Julia Roberts.
Guys, put it in the chat.
I love it.
I just saw her in a movie. I think you kind of
really
of her.
Oh, well, thank you. That's a really nice compliment.
That's interesting, because I don't see Drew. I mean, like, Drew Barrymore's adorable, but I don't see it.
Yeah. I used to have long. I donated 15 inches of hair during COVID, so my hair was like your length 2 years ago. So maybe it was when my hair was longer. Was the Drew Barrymore look? I don't know.
Well, we'll see, because the people in the chat are very good for. We play this little.
I love.
I'm getting Uma Thurman. You have Julia's smile for sure. I get a Julia Roberts. Yeah.
Wow. I'll take it. Thank you.
That's interesting. So are there any recipes in your book? Because even if there were with the Audible, you don't see them.
Sure. Yeah. And there should be a link with the Audible. There is a PDF that you can print out, because I made sure to do that for people who are listening. There are a handful of recipes, and then there are even more on my website. So www.forforksakebook.com. And in fact, I have our all-time favorite lasagna recipe is your disappearing lasagna.
Yes, and I noticed that you gave me, I wrote it down. I was so pleased. On day 2, you gave me a shout out. Thank you.
Yes, for sure. That's been our favorite for years. So yeah, I have more on the website. But yeah, in the book, I give some suggestions, just because I wanted to people who are reading through it and not to have to put it down and go somewhere to look up recipes. So there's I talk about cooking easy, right? Making this easy on yourself. Jeff Novick's soup, his longevity soup mix, making up a batch of that at the beginning of the week, and you've got tons of meals right there, or stick it in your freezer. So there's some breakfast recipes, some ideas for burgers, easy foods that kids also will enjoy. The mac and not cheese, you can make that a bake, kids and adults alike like that. So yeah, there are some in there.
Absolutely. Do you work with people in helping them transition at all?
I do consulting, and you can sign up for that on my website as well. And it's been really lovely. I didn't set out to do that, but I had so many people ask, I'm new to this, or I'm stuck in this one area. I just have a few questions. So, typically it can be as many times as people want to meet, but from 1 to 4 times is usually enough to get people a really good go at figuring out what's maybe tripping them up in eating this way, or offering some new suggestions that maybe they hadn't tried. Had a few people go, everything is fine, but I really miss meat, so coming up with meat alternatives for a while that work for them, maybe soy curls for a bit, or different things to try, mushrooms, that kind of stuff.
Now, somebody is saying Carol Lombard. I had to look her up to see if she's.
I don't know who that is.
I mean, she's like an old-time movie actress, and
really?
She's gorgeous, but I'm sticking with Julia Roberts. So, all right.
I think it's the big mouth with Julia Roberts.
No, it's just you got a great smile. Well, you need a big mouth so you can put all that kale in it, right?
That's true. Yeah. And I'm like you. I love to eat. I have to say, my favorite part about eating this way, people are shocked. I was like, well, how many calories, how much protein? I'm like, I don't measure or weigh anything. I eat as much as I want, because when you're eating the right food, you can have as much as you want of it. And that probably to me is the number one best part about eating this way.
I love every day is Christmas. As long as I don't include those fats, it's like the sky's the limit. It's so fun.
Exactly.
Nikki says she loves your hair.
Oh, thank you. It's growing out.
So whether you're working with a client or not, if this situation comes up, how do you advise people? Because this is what I hear is one of the hardest things for mixed marriages, whether it's usually, I got to say, once in a while it's the wife, but usually it's the husband that's not on board. And if the husband isn't on board, it's much harder to get the kids on board.
True. Yeah, I think my favorite suggestion came from a woman actually from the McDougall program. And she said she knew somebody who said, I'm going to cook this way for myself. And, I've got my own cupboards. You guys can have your own cupboards. And first of all, I admire anybody who is able to do this, not in a home that is also doing this, because it's really difficult, even when you are, doing it, but especially on your own. So kudos to anybody who's giving it a go. But this woman said what she told her husband was, I'll still fix you meat. But I'm not eating anymore. So she would get like a piece of meat and she would just boil it in water. And then she'd put it on a plate. And she would in the meantime, fix herself a beautiful whole food plant-based meal. And so it didn't take very long that, he would get this chunk of meat on his plate with really nothing else, maybe a potato or whatever, plain. She wasn't doctoring it up. She wasn't putting sauces on there or anything, that he wanted to start trying what she was eating, So I love that example because I thought it was great. It was, I don't know. It was kind of sneaky, but she was still willing to cook. I don't know that I would still be willing to cook. I think, saying if you want to eat it, that's fine. You can cook it yourself. But yeah, that was really gracious.
It's really hard for people, especially if they're an ethical vegan like me, to be in a mixed marriage, I think, because it's just so visually unappealing and sad. And, I think at this age, I hope I die before my husband, but if I ever had to like hook up with somebody again, like that would be a prerequisite. That would just would. When we were dating, it wasn't, because I was, 35 years younger. And, but I did say to him, and I literally said this on the first date, you can eat what you want, but if there's a marriage and if there's kids, the kids are vegan and the house is vegan. And it's just, became an accidental vegan because most people are lazy, whether they're men or not. And it's like, if you've got somebody to cook delicious food for you, why not eat it? I mean, Dr. Goldhammer, so many stories of patients where he's counseled the women to just make the meal and then let them fend for themselves. And, so like the first few weeks they're bringing out the grill and then they're like, fine, I'm vegan. Maybe they'll eat something when they're out, but again, just don't have it in their house.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, you don't even have to subtract necessarily. You can just add in all these beautiful, colorful, amazing things. And eventually it will look really good. I love your story because I put the story of my daughter in the book too. When she was like 7 or 8, she was talking with a friend about what kind of man she wanted to marry. And we were driving down Highway 1 and she was in the back seat. And I said, well, what about you? Have you thought about it? And she said, yeah, I know that I want a man who doesn't bring home the bacon. And I tried not to laugh out loud and was like, oh, well, what do you mean by that? Thankfully, I thought to ask. And she said, well, I'm going to be vegan when I grow up. So I don't want a man to bring home bacon, which I was like, terrific. And she's 20 years old and she's, vegan now. She's dating a vegan. So lives.
And I'm guessing both your kids grew up healthy, eating this way.
They did. Yeah. But, part of this was not just about my nephew. My cholesterol had been high in my 20s. My dad had always had high cholesterol, always on statins. He'd have to change them because he'd lose his taste or some odd side effect. And his dad had Alzheimer's and died of pancreatic cancer. His brother died of pancreatic cancer. And my dad's now in the early stages of Alzheimer's. And so when we were learning about cholesterol, and my cholesterol dropped really rapidly doing this, but also it didn't drop as much as maybe a normal person's cholesterol would. So I had a doctor at the time who said, you could do some more testing. And so we did, and we got our APOE gene testing done and found out that I carry the 4-3 gene, as does my son, who at age 10, they wanted to put on cholesterol medication. Now, this is after eating vegan for almost 4 years. So it was all about cutting out the good fats. We were just having, too much avocado, too much peanut butter, and our bodies overproduce cholesterol. We're not the 4-4 type, which is like people who get Alzheimer's really at a young age, but our bodies store plaque differently and create cholesterol, overcreate cholesterol. So we're really careful with that. But our kids have been really healthy. I mean, my son and I had to do carotid artery tests for several years, and we both had the veins of much older people when we started. And 10 years later, we had veins of younger people. And my husband and I did the calcium heart score test almost a year and a half ago now, and we had perfect heart scores. So it really was reversing heart disease, just watching that plaque disappear. It's really wild what your body is capable of.
So is this test something that anyone can ask their doctor for? Is it expensive? Does insurance pay for it?
I don't remember if insurance pays for it. I want to say it was just something you added to your lipid panel, but it's the APOE gene, and everybody carries one of these 6 genes. So this is like, my best way to describe it is like when people say, oh, red wine and chocolate are good for you. Well, for 2 people, it might be, your body might really process it well and deal with it well. But then 2 people in the middle, it's like, give or take, it's fine. And then 2 people on the other end, it's horrible for it. Your body really doesn't use it. So this is where our genes come into play. But, you know, in living this way, we really know now that it's 90% our lifestyle, right? Our genes are there, but we can control much more than we thought we could. The genes are not the whole thing.
You know, I've always had, you know, cholesterol usually under 99 because I've been vegan for 45 years. I don't know if I've ever had this test, but usually in January I get, you know, once a year, the physical insurance will pay. And so maybe I would ask for that. What would it tell somebody like me? Like, would it be useful at all to know?
You know, it's a good question. I think mostly when I've heard it used is for people who have history of Alzheimer's or dementia, because they now know that connection.
My mother did have Alzheimer's and my father cancer.
Right. So maybe it would be helpful just to know. Not that it would change anything, you know, for you, already.
I mean, like the thing is like, even if I got cancer, I'm thinking like, other than water fast, like what more would I do?
Right.
You know, I mean,
Exactly. Yeah. For us, it was more like, it's good to know. I mean, I had my parents do it as well. So we found out my dad carries a gene, I do, and my son does. So, and in the beginning, we were like, not everybody in our family has to eat this way. But my husband and daughter, like I said, are both lactose intolerant. And they said, we'll just all eat this way. It'll be easier.
Everybody's lactose intolerant. I'm sorry.
Right.
I mean, almost everybody in the population, if you're Jewish, if you're Asian, if you're African American, you can't digest, you know, people take special pills or special to eat something. It's not, I mean, it is like, that's the thing that drives me crazy. I mean, I don't really understand eating dead animals in general, but to drink the lactation fluid from another mammal, that's just gross.
We know there's pus in it. I mean, it's just, that's disgusting.
I mean, literally. And it's in the cheese and the yogurt, but dairy's addictive. And so,
and people will say, oh, I'm fine, it doesn't bother me, but they get sinus infections several times a year, or they're always stuffy. You know, I think, well, that's your body trying to deal with the milk, you know? So
absolutely. Dee says, how does one maintain their weight eating plant-based? Easily, when it's whole food plant-based, low oil or no oil with low or no sugar and salt. It's pretty easy. Yeah.
And it's crazy. I mean, pounds just literally melt off. You will probably eat, and I talk about this in the book because for me, it felt so odd to be eating more volume of food than I ever have. I was worried, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the, you know, one person that gains weight eating this way rather than lose this weight. But if you're, like you said, eating the right foods, you can eat in abundance of them and you still will be losing weight. Your body will be getting rid of what it doesn't need. So it's not something, like I said, you don't have to count calories or, you know, get on the scale all the time. And, you know, in consulting with people, I would say, like, I had a gentleman I worked with and it was wonderful, not wonderful for him. He had torn his Achilles and, he had some weight he wanted to lose, but he couldn't exercise. And the wonderful part was that we started him eating this way. He decided to give it a go when he wasn't able to exercise. And in 5 weeks, lost 35 pounds or something crazy. But it was wonderful because once he started exercising again, he continued to lose weight, but it proved to him that it wasn't just the exercise. You don't have to be exercising hours a day. I suggest that everybody moves in some way every day, even if it's just walking, you know, include some movement for the benefit of your whole body, but you will lose weight just by eating this way. It's not about the exercise per se.
Oh, Dee's saying I keep losing and I'm too thin. Well, then you can add some nuts.
Yeah, I've had a few of those people, but yes, now you get to eat all my favorite foods in abundance if you want. So yeah. Just those higher fat, like you said, plant-based foods, avocados, nuts, seeds, tahini dressing, you know, all those things that are olives.
What do you do for exercise, Rachel?
So I love to trail run. We live near the redwoods, so we're literally like 2 blocks from the redwoods. So I run trails. I rock climb with my husband. We bike pack recently. We've gotten into that in the last few years. Mountain bike, road bike, ski in the winter. We love being active outdoors, basically anything outdoors.
Were you always active even before going plant-based 12 years ago?
Yeah, growing up, I thought I wanted to be a professional dancer. So that was the first really like 14 years of my life was dedicated to that. And, ballet, classical ballet, modern, all of it, jazz. And then I got into sports in high school. I think the foot-eye coordination was easy for me. So soccer was really easy. My dad had ran track in college and I got the speed gene. So I was a sprinter in track and enjoyed soccer and played a little bit of basketball, but then just continued to run. It was cheap and easy in college because you just need shoes and fun way to see a new area. I went to school at University of Washington in Seattle. So it was fun way to get to know the city and started doing longer races. I did one ultra run, a 50K when we lived in Alaska. So yeah.
You lived in Alaska? Where? Alaska's I wouldn't want to live there, but I think it's the most beautiful state I've ever seen, that or Hawaii.
Yeah, well, we lived both those places actually. So we lived about an hour north of Anchorage in Palmer. My husband taught high school Spanish at the time at Palmer High, and we coached their cross country running team and their cross country ski team when we were there. We were there for 4 years and had both our kids there. And then, and I agree with you, beautiful, beautiful state. Everybody, I hope, can go at some point. And if Washington State was where the Yukon is or Canada is, we'd probably still be there. But after having 2 kids and 40 below for 2 weeks, I was like, oh boy, can't do this for very long without family around or more of a network. So we made wonderful friends and all that, but we moved back to Washington State for a year. And then my husband changed jobs and we moved to Hawaii for a year, actually. So, and then 16 years ago, moved to Santa Cruz area, Scotts Valley, California.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow. Well, I told you
West Coast.
Right before we logged on, I told you I was going to ask you this question, but I didn't even have to because I knew somebody in the chat would. What does Rachael eat in a day?
Oh boy, I can do both. I can do very simple and the same stuff for a long time. And so this week it's been that because we were gone. It was our 23rd wedding anniversary last week. So we were up in Sonoma County, but we made like a tofu frittata with tons of veggies. We made a curry hummus. Of course, we have salad greens and arugula. Make the simplest dressing in the world. And that's what I've been eating all week long since Sunday, Saturday when we got home, combinations of that. And then on the other hand, sometimes it's really fun if I have the time to get creative and make something new. So my kids are both in college. They're coming home. Well, one's coming home for Thanksgiving. Both are coming home for Christmas. So at that time, it'll be fun to break out some different recipes that we don't usually do and have some more special things that take longer to make. But now that it's just my husband and I, we can just do honestly, tostadas are one thing that we sometimes have 3 times a week.
Almost every night here. We can eat Mexican every night. I
easy.
A batch of tostada rice and then I freeze it and then I take a bag out and then we have all the accoutrements. I could eat that every night.
Exactly. Oh, us too. Yeah. And you can add whatever veggies you have. I mean, we love Brussels sprouts. We cook up a bunch of greens and we just have it to add to whatever. So anything whole and plant-based, I will eat.
Susanna made an interesting comment that I like. She said that she heard a saying that stuck with her: cows make milk because they're mothers, not because they're cows. And they certainly didn't make it for you and me. That's for sure.
So true. Yeah. It's something I've said to people is when they're like, well, what do you eat? I'm like, nothing with a mother or a face. That seems to resonate with people. And, people will say, yeah, but my kids, really like milk and I don't want to scare them with, videos of CAFOs. But, one thing I'm like, well, if your kids really love animals, which most kids do, if you describe to them like, well, the cow has milk because it had a baby, but now we're taking that from a baby, the baby calf is gone so that we can have that milk, just in kid terms, describing what it is that we're having. Yeah, I saw a picture. Somebody did this meme and it's like a cow and a grown man in a diaper laying under it, like drinking from it. Like it just looks so ridiculous, but that's going on all the time.
What did you make for Thanksgiving?
So we usually go down to see my parents who winter down in Palm Desert, your old stomping grounds. And we get together.
Do they eat this way?
So they eat this way, I would say 70-ish%. They eat this way more than they ever would have. I grew up mostly vegetarian, but my mom loves fish. So, and she would cook meat for my dad every once in a while, but mostly vegetarian. She's a really good cook. But they have a really hard time giving up their dairy. I mean, cheese and ice cream is their big thing. So I make basically all the sides. So we have a stuffing recipe that everybody loves, mushroom gravy that everybody loves. Those are always our contributions, garlic mashed potatoes. This year I found a sweet potato au gratin recipe that I want to try that was on Forks Over Knives just recently. It looked really good. So yeah, it's funny because Thanksgiving people get all scared, but for the most part, I remember reading this the first year we were eating this way, John McDougall saying Thanksgiving is the easiest. It's mainly all plants. It's just
sides, and it's all sides, really.
Exactly. Yeah. So other than the turkey, I mean, we're totally happy to eat all the sides. And we make stuffing and, that gravy and mashed, we make it year round because we love it. It's not just Thanksgiving food for us because those are some of our favorite recipes.
Right. There's a question about the chickpea frittata from Monarch. Does the tofu frittata use chickpea flour as a base?
That's a good question. And I have to admit, my husband made it. So I don't know. I have to say we went to this Center for Nutrition Studies, and that was the recipe he used, I believe. So if you go to, I want to say it's nutritionstudies.org, under their recipes or their kitchen section, it would be found under there. We went to this conference 2 weeks ago in Tucson, and where all these amazing speakers and doctors, triple board certified doctors, were Anna Negron was one of the speakers. But there were some cooking demonstrations. Chef Del was there, and Evelise Cabo. So they made some different things. And one of them was this tofu frittata. And my husband is a wonderful man, and he is a wonderful baker, but he doesn't cook a lot. But he was convinced in seeing them prep it, like this was not that hard. And he came home and made this tofu frittata. So I was not actually the chef on that one. So it was worth going to the conference just to have him come home and make a few different things.
Oh, that's fantastic. Here's a question from Cindy. Eating as much as you want left of the red line, how does that not stop weight loss? I'm not sure I understand. I think it facilitates weight loss. You don't just keep losing weight to like zero. I mean, that doesn't happen.
Right. It's kind of, I think about Dr. Campbell talking about when you eat a whole plant, right? Like your body has the ability to take what it needs from something that you're eating and use it or not use it. So depending on what you're eating, like, I don't know, maybe you need vitamin C and you ate a ton of vitamin C for breakfast. Well, if you eat more vitamin C for lunch, your body won't necessarily use it because it has all it needed. I think the same thing in simplistic terms happens with weight. Like your body has a natural state that it wants to be in. And as long as it's getting enough calories, it will try to get to and then stay at that weight. Like you said, you're not going to waste away eating. And when you're eating whole plant-based food, you're eating calories, you're eating good things. You're just eating what your body needs, not the extra. So.
Yeah, absolutely. If people want, I keep posting the link to the book, both in the show notes and in the chat, but if people want to be involved more in your sphere, do you have a social media presence that I can send them to?
Yeah, I do, for Fork's Sake Book on Instagram and for Fork's Sake Book on Facebook as well. You can find me book.
Gave me those, so I'll add those right now. Fantastic.
Perfect. Yeah.
Well, oh wait, I know I do have a question. So one of the things in the book that you talked about, not all the doctors agree with, but I'm going to go there in a different way. You seem to be okay with coffee and alcohol.
It's funny. So, getting a book out, I would say, it took a lot of work. It just came out September 13th. But had it been, 3 to 6 months earlier, I think I would have revised the alcohol part, honestly. The coffee, I would say is there's more on both sides on that. But I think it's fair to say now, I wish I would have been able to amend the alcohol part because, the research is just piling up against alcohol. And, I know that's a hard one for people. And I tend to go, I like Dr. McDougall's approach of not getting stuck in the weeds, like do the most important things. And so I don't want people to go, oh, well, I can't do, if I have to give up my coffee and alcohol, well, I'm definitely not doing it.
Sure, and I understand. And I wasn't, that's why I was that way, because the thing is I, like they always say, if you're a hammer, you see everything as a nail. And I look at things through the calorie density lens, and I don't see people that drink alcohol regularly have a really easy time losing weight and maintaining their weight loss.
True. True. I mean, I would say there's no good. I mean, all the things we were told, it's kind of like the Mediterranean diet, right? Like, oh, red wine's so good for you because it has all these antioxidants. Well, sure, but eat a handful of grapes, or have an apple. You'll get the same difference. It's not like you can only get that from red wine. Plus, like you said, all the calories and the non-benefits. So just the links now to cancer that they found, especially women and breast cancer, and the amount of alcohol is just, there's enough research out there now that it's harder to ignore. That said, I enjoy a glass of wine every once in a while. I will have a beer with friends. I will celebrate. I'm not a huge drinker, but it's not that I don't have any ever.
Right.
Coffee,
You're not pounding down the booze every night, I'm guessing, right?
No, exactly. Yeah. No. For our anniversary, we had some sparkly, we had some champagne, but no, it's not an every night. It's not an every night thing. And the coffee, I have gone back and forth. I have spent my first job was a barista. So I got hooked really young and, then went to like totally black coffee and then adding plant-based milks. And, I don't add sugar, so that's not a thing for me. I just really like the taste of coffee. So I've given it up at times. Actually, when we did that 10-day McDougall initial thing, we gave up coffee. And my husband called me the first day. We were like, okay, we're done with it. We got our blood work done. He drove to work and he stopped at Pete's and got a coffee. And he called me and he said, do not get a full calf coffee because we were both excited to get a coffee. And I was like, are you kidding me? Now we can have coffee. I'm going to do it. He said, don't do it. He's like, I'm shaking, and it was like an Americano, which is what we usually drink, So yeah, I've done both. I'll give it up for a time, but I always come back to it because I like it. So now I'm drinking this coffee called Peak State coffee, and it's really well sourced coffee with mushrooms.
Well, that's
so
interesting.
get the benefits of mushrooms.
Have you ever tried brown rice unforgettable coffee? That's my favorite. It's just made out of rice. But again, if you're drinking coffee for the caffeine, you won't like the substitutes.
Right. I haven't tried that. I've done Pero and Cafix. I like those too. I'll have those in the afternoon sometimes if I don't want any caffeine, but I love the just flavor of coffee. And those are amazingly to me. I don't know how they can take chicory root and barley root and make them taste so much like coffee.
It
really is.
They make out of things, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Mud water is another one we transitioned to. My son actually in high school started drinking coffee and then has like gone through it's not good for me. I'm not going to do it. So we did mud water for a while, which is also a mushroom and turmeric mix.
Yeah, it's fascinating, the products. Here's a funny comment from Dave. I'm trying to get back down to my original weight, 8 pounds, 9 ounces. That is so fun.
Amazing.
I love it. Well, you're just delightful. People are saying that you're just adorable. And so thank you for writing a book that I think really will help a lot of people because it's like, you're not beating them over the head, which is probably what I would do if I wrote a book. So,
well, I was going to say, I've gone with, Dr. Lyle has taught me so much and on the whole theme of not losing friends over this, in the beginning, we were like horrible preachers because we felt so good. We were late 20s and we were eating this way and we felt better than we had, in our days in college. Like we had so much energy and just felt so good. So we were like telling everybody we could about this. And pretty soon we're like, we still want to have friends. I think they're getting tired of us talking about this. So especially after hearing Dr. Lyle speak, it's hard for me not to want to preach at everybody, but realizing that, just being an example and having people ask questions can be even better in a lot of cases and to not have to argue. I mean, I want to like show every fact and like, are you kidding me? You don't know what you're talking about? Like really just look into it and then we can talk about it. But not everybody's ready to. So accepting that. And then hopefully this book for people who are in your life that maybe you're like, well, I don't know, you're doing this thing. I don't know if I could or something. I was hoping this book would reach those people who maybe wouldn't pick up a heavy read, but like, okay, fine. Something kind of light and funny, but that will give the main point. So.
Well, it's about time people go vegan for fork's sake.
Right. For fork's sake. It is.
I love it. That's terrible that Amazon would not do that. But I don't get it.
I honestly don't either. And the team I work with is like, we've seen this now with 2 books this year. This has never been a thing before. So I don't know.
How come Skinny Bitch is allowed to be on Amazon?
Right. Well, I can be on it. I just can't advertise. So it has to do with their algorithms and all that. So yeah, I don't really understand it either, but I did want to say too, so with this book, I'm donating 50% of the proceeds or the profits to charity, and 1% is going to 1% for the planet. I joined that organization because I really do just want to do good with this book. So every purchase is helping others and helping the planet.
Because I don't know if that's in the show notes. We should tell people that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
You got to tell me
Yep.
exactly how to phrase it, because I think that's
Okay.
it's another reason to support the book.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I will. Yeah. 50% of profits from the sale of the book are being donated to charity. 1%.
We should have led with that. Well, I did not know that. So thank you. That's great.
Definitely.
Nice. Well, you're just wonderful. So thank you so much, Rachael.
Thank you, Chef AJ. It's been a total pleasure. Very, very fun.
This is a lot of fun. And if the author and the health coach doesn't work out, you could probably get a job being a double for Julia Roberts.
Hey, maybe I'll look into that.
Yeah, great. Take care.
Thank you.
So
You
much.
too. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow. The show is a little bit earlier at 9 a.m. I have a lady who is vegan named Claudia. I cannot pronounce her last name. It's German, and I'll learn it by tomorrow. But what she does is help you improve vision naturally. And she's had people that now completely don't need glasses. So that should be a really interesting show. And get the book for fork's sake. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.